Hello everyone, welcome on a new episode of Robert Spotlight.
Robert Spotlight.
Robert Spotlight. Robert Spotlight. Robert Spotlight.
Doing all this moderation stuff for Discord.
I'm a social media futurist.
To the moderator, I'd be friends.
Now it's my project because I love sports.
I'm speaking at NFT NYC.
Welcome on the show. Sorry, my mic was mute. So as I was saying, welcome on a new episode of Robert Spotlight. Robert Spotlight today, ZeroG. Welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
Thank you to be here. So ZeroG, could you introduce yourself for people that don't know you?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm I've been in crypto for since 2012, but a couple of years ago I got into the vintage NFT stuff, and that's where I really kind of found my niche. I've really become passionate about that for a few reasons. I see it really as kind of like a capsule, or capturing like one of the most significant moments in time, and really are the development of these technological and social systems as they're evolving. So, but yeah, I've been in crypto for a long time. I did some altcoin mining. I did some trading. I was terrible at that, and and now I'm much all in on vintage NFTs.
All right. And if I get it right, you enter into the crypto world with a Bienvenue in 2012. If I get it right.
That's right. Yeah, I bought back then. I bought a little bit of Bitcoin, and then I also, at the same time, I bought Litecoin and Namecoin, and a couple other dogs like Corkcoin and stuff. So.
All right. And from that point, you were more into cryptocurrency, and all the vintage NFT start to become on your radar.
Yeah. So, I kind of, the first time I came across NFTs were these ascribe NFTs that were on Bitcoin back in. I read an article on it was on CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, something like that, in about 2015, 2016. There was this project called Neuro. That was the first digital art that I was aware of, because I was more focused on the technology side of crypto, like the NFT and art scene. I really didn't find out about. So I that was my first exposure. I came across I knew about crypto kitties, and I later learned of crypto punks, but I didn't really dive in until January of must have been 2020, when I got my crypto punk. It's when I really started getting into it and kind of understanding. To me, there's I guess it was a big paradigm shift for having been so passionate and still being passionate about cryptocurrency, to actually seeing the benefit and the value for NFTs instead of fungible tokens. So I don't know. It took me a while to kind of really grasp that and kind of make that flip. Okay,
and what helped you to make this shift, basically? Because you just say that took you a lot of time, but could you did you remember what is the Eureka moment when you understood really the impact of NFT?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess that's a really broad question, in the sense that there's so many different because there's so many different aspects that take a longer time to grasp onto. But for me, it was the digital, the digital scarcity, when I was reading about about CryptoPunks and some of those other early projects, it was the one is that they're historically significant and desirable, and that they have a very small finite supply, and the fact that they're basically some of the only remnants of crypto culture that you can actually trade that do have the digital scarcity. So that and also at the same time you're mixing in again what was at some of these cutting edge developments too. So it was really coming across that and just realizing that these are like, Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of these other cryptos, they're always going to be valuable. But to me, it's much more fun and much more fascinating to own like something that's historically significant than just having a X number of ETH or something, for example. So, and I also think that culturally, it's going to be relevant long term too.
Okay, makes sense. Make a lot of sense. Regarding the vintage, so did its a supply thing? Did its historical aspect? What lead you to go on the niche of vintage NFT?
Yeah, sure. So the first NFT project I was involved in was like this, it was kind of this like obscure like CryptoKitties knockoff back in Ethereum in 2018 called Crypto Pepes, which it was kind of like this oddball project where they're using proof of work on Ethereum to distribute tokens that were redeemable for these Genesis NFTs, like the equivalent of like Gen Zero Crypto Kitties. So that was my first exposure, and I didn't really, I thought it was like cute, but I didn't really see the value. It was like when I'd come across CryptoPunks a couple times and I had passed, but in January of 2020 I lurked in their Discord for a little bit. There are a lot of people that were much more familiar with the whole premise of digital collectibles and NFTs and the value proposition. Like I said, I was really unfamiliar at the time, but these guys were really laying out a pretty solid thesis. And at the time, I was I was ignorant. They were laying the case that that CryptoPunks were quote unquote the first NFT at the time, which we know, of course, is not correct. But that was one of the reasons that that made me like kind of take the leap, because even back then a CryptoPunk was a lot of money. Like I bought mine for 9 ETH, which is a lot for me. So so that was a big gamble for me. But part of it was the historical significance. Now we know that CryptoPunks aren't the first, but they were definitely kind of like a trendsetter in creating the 10K generative collection that so many projects have followed. But so that really sparked my interest, and from there, I in the CryptoPunks Discord back then, a lot of these other projects started to get discovered, like curio cards, crypto cats, moon cats, and I kind of went along for the ride, and Etheria, and I was along for the ride on most of those, and I just thought these projects were super cool and really fascinating. There's just such a wide diversity of old projects too, and I just think it's an interesting opportunity. And again, I also think that one of my my thesis long term is that or part of it is that we're part of we're still in like the early emergence of the of cryptocurrency as a main facet of wealth for like younger, like multimillionaires, even billionaires. And I think that in order to basically maintain relevancy and show that you understand the culture, I think that some of these high net worth individuals are going to desire, you know, these status symbols, but also are going to need to purchase them in order to not look like they're essentially frauds in the space too. That I think is, you know, it's so you've got like the flex thing, but also not to look like a fraud. Like, you know, that's one thing that I thought was interesting with Sam Bankman-Fried is that he had a enormous amount of crypto wealth on paper at the time, but you know, we have all these other some of these other high-profile, you know, crypto billionaires and multimillionaires that were buying, you know, some things like you know, buying punks or whatever. He never made any significant purchases, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So to show that maybe he never, again, an indicator that he never really was part of the crypto culture itself.
All right. So in your perspective, it's like from a cultural standpoint, if someone wants to be legit in the long term, he have to go into these historical pieces.
I think it shows an appreciation for the culture, right? So if I become a billionaire off of, let's say, ETH or Bitcoin or whatever, and I don't have anything, you know, anything other than the tokens to show for it, I don't know. It almost makes you, well, I don't know. I think it gives them it gives someone a lot more credibility if they have these things. Again, maybe that's my warped perspective, because you know I'm kind of in my own little bubble here. But yeah, that's the way I look at it. You know, it would be akin to you know, like Mark Zuckerberg trying to make like his meta thing, like, you know, his whole goal was to try and make that walled garden without any you know, open metaverse, you know, properties. So it just makes you look out of touch. It's kind of is how I look at it.
All right. And basically, in your perspective, because as you just said, it's from your lens, you use that as a signal, right? To screen someone, to just have a sense of, did this person you know, did this person is legit or not? It's like a pre-filter in your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I guess another way of putting that is that you have to, I guess, at least be aware enough of the history or the culture of crypto to actually want to buy these things too, right? So if you know, if someone who's crypto rich doesn't even know what, for you know, for example, like, you know, Rare Pepes or curio cards or crypto punks, if they don't even know what that is, then I don't know, it raises red flags to me. So I mean, it just shows that you can't really be into the you know, at least that era of the zeitgeist.
Understood. Make a lot of sense. Talking about vintage, so let's get into some meaningful collection. So you give several names. You know, you talk about CryptoPunks, Curio Cards, Rare Pepe. So you said several things about CryptoPunks that, as we know today, it's not the first PFP project, but I will not be able to quote you exactly, but I will rephrase what you said. It's the first significant PFP project in Ethereum, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it was in generative too. It kind of set, yeah, it set the stage for almost everything else that followed in that you know, that pattern.
Okay. And what would you say to someone that, because let's pretend that someone that is going to listen to that interview, it's not into Web3, you know, so we may assume that this person is going to have a misunderstanding about why someone putting that amount of money, you know, into a JPEG, you know. So what could you say with your words, with your view of that market, what would you say to someone like this? What would you say to make him understood why that collection matter?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, my lens is essentially that, you know, at least for me, a lot of the value for these projects is inherently tied into the history of crypto itself. So, you know, if you don't have really a love of crypto and really the possibilities and the values and the potential that brings forth for humanity, then you can approach that strictly on a, you know, on a high risk investment perspective as well. But you know, like how you should value these, I think that you know, I think if you don't actually have a passion for the space, you just want to take a more dispassionate view and strictly view it as a high risk alternative asset class. So, you know, you can value, like if you're taking that approach, you can value them from a whole range of different perspectives, from, you know, traditional, like in terms of collection size, the historical significance, popularity, you know, relevancy in the culture too, because there's a bunch of small projects that are, you know, still relatively unknown, that like weren't even really known back then either. So, you know, just because they're like scarce, you know, like there's of something, doesn't necessarily mean it's inherently valuable to other people, right? And ultimately value is subjective too. So that's what I would like. I guess when I'm talking about this stuff anymore, I don't really like to, you know, like I'm trying to build up my collection, but a lot of people coming into the space are strictly focused on, you know, on this as an investment or as a flip, either short or long term. And, you know, I think that to an extent misses the point.
Okay, makes sense. Make perfect sense. It's very clear. Let's move on Rare Pepe.
Yeah.
Could you introduce Rare Pepe for someone that don't know what is Rare Pepe?
Oh yeah, sure. So, you know, Rare Pepes are it's the first like decentralized community crypto art project. So it was founded on Bitcoin, on the counterparty system, you know, just by some people having fun and messing around. So it was a voluntary project where it allowed any individual to submit their own card, have it accepted into this collection, and, you know, there was essentially no fees. Like the artist retained full control of their artwork. They could do whatever they wanted with it. Like some people burned theirs, some people, you know, sold it, you know, whatever. So it allowed for the development of this really rich and diverse collection where you have over 1,700 of these different artworks. So you have this this broad body of pieces, from like kind of like kids art all the way to these like really high detail pieces done that are, you know, amazing. You know, so you just got this breadth of work from amateurs to like kind of semi-pros all across the board. It's got a really great vibe because there was no profit motive back then too. So it's a fascinating collection, and I think one of the most significant ones culture as well. Yeah, it's an amazing collection.
All right. And you say that was built on top of Contrepartie. Contrepartie was a sidechain of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so that's running. It's running on Bitcoin. So it's a technical system that was developed in 2014. So it allows for it was an early system that allowed you to create, you know, tokens and assets that you could use to create, you know, these, you know, it was really envisioned to create like for more like financial products, but it ended up mainly being used for NFTs and stuff, which is what it's mainly used for today.
All right. And on all the supply of Rare Pepe, because you said that it's the first decentralized community. on all the supply, on all the card that the community was offering, what lead to having some card having most inherent value than other?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, Rare Pepe is interesting because, like I said, every artist had the ability to have a lot of freedom with their cards, and a lot of the rules weren't finalized until it was a little bit further into the process. So some of the early cards had extremely small issuances. So you had, for example, there's a handful of one cards that are, essentially priceless. They've traded for, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. But they have other ones that, not just due to scarcity, but also due to the significance. So, for example, right now, the one that consistently trades with the most volume, but at the highest price, would be the first card, which it has 298 supply right now, the Rare Pepe, the Series 1 card one. But people also call the Nakamoto Pepe. That is because it's the card that kicked off. It's extremely coveted, and it's also one of the most memed and parodied or ripped on cards in the entire collection, and also is referenced in other collections too. It's kind of a crypto cultural icon, the Nakamoto card.
And how many card there is?
So for the first card, it was an initial supply of 300, and there's two that have been destroyed. There's 298 of those left. The other cards have their own, just depending on which card it is, they have their own supply that remains. So again, there was a handful of one-of-ones. There's quite a bit more that are like 50 or less, and the majority are 100 supply or less. So, but it's quite the range. There's some that have, hundreds of thousands of cards for a particular one. So that's one of the things that makes Rare Pepe's a kind of its own rabbit hole, is just how much there is to learn and explore. I mean, because with over 1,700 cards, there's it would take you a long time to not just to see, but then to also kind of understand the individual market dynamics for each one.
All right. And today, to collect them, most of them are used into emblem vault.
Yeah, so I guess that's the most popular way that newcomers use to buy Rare Pepes. Yeah, you can buy, so using Emblem Vault, you can buy those on Ethereum. Generally, you can, the prices are probably consistently higher in Emblem, and if you can, a lot of trades happen also in they have a built-in counterparty distributed exchange that you can trade on there or with dispensers for Bitcoin. And there's kind of a lot of activity happens OTC as well for people that are kind of in the scene too. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the easiest way for people to go, the Emblem is definitely the ticket. And I think we're within a month or two of them launching the Emblem Vault curated collections, which is going to make it even easier for people to be able to buy and sell these cards. So previously, every card was its own thing, but with these new curated collections, you'll just have a single listing for all the, let's say card 2, there's 50 people that have vaulted those. So there's 50 different listings you'd have to look through and then validate that they're actually legit. With these new curated collections that Emblem is launching, there'll just be one listing without the 50 cards underneath that one listing. So that it's actually a valid card if it's listed under this validated collection, and it makes it buying and selling a lot easier that way.
Yes, it will. It make a lot of sense, because the more split the collection are, the more harder it is for any collector, to do his due diligence and to find out, to cut into the noise. So I wasn't aware of that. So thank you for the information about the curated collection from Emblem Vault. When you were explaining that, I was thinking about did there is because here a way to explain the value of Emblem Vault, it's to bring to make it easy, you know, for a collector to collect these pieces. Without talking about Emblem Vault, you talk about over the counter. Did there is any kind of maybe other marketplace, or what are the other places that collectors are using when they are not using Emblem Vault to make it shorter?
Yeah. So if so, one is that there's the easiest way for people to check at a glance, like get a general idea for the market for a particular card, is to use this website called pepe.wtf, and then you can search by particular card, and it will show you the different listings that are there, whether they're through a Bitcoin dispenser or Emblem Vault or through the counterparty decentralized exchange. It'll show you the different prices and the recent trades. But for over the counter stuff, there's like individual dealers and brokers out there that that buy and sell, and collectors that just do this over the counter. There's also a handful of auctions. So like Scarce City does auctions periodically. You have WTF, Roaring Auctions, WTH auctions. You know, they sell Rare Pepes in an auction format too. So, but generally, like you said, the Emblem is like the easiest for new people to get into. I guess the other thing I just want to mention too is that, you know, one of the reasons that Pepes are significant as well is that this is like Pepe the Frog is still like the most ubiquitous like meme on the internet. It's everywhere, where like whether you're using Discord or Telegram or whatever app,
yes,
like
it is
the Pepe meme is like, it's so moldable and so ubiquitous for memeing and reactions. It's really extraordinary. So I know that some people got scared off by the by, you know, like there's this impression of Pepe the Frog being like alt-right or whatever. And there's a good documentary called Feels Good Man that kind of goes a little bit more into the history. And I mean, you know, people were just getting scared off by, you know, some of the crazy stuff that the 4chaners and these early internet culture people were doing. I mean, you can apply the same argument, I mean, to all these other, like, you can misuse art in all these other ways. But with Rare Pepes, you know, they were cognizant of kind of like that darker side, and they purposely went out of their way to ensure that, you know, the Rare Pepes didn't have any hate-filled you know, there's no racist or hate-filled imagery or anything like that. They kept it clean. So,
all right, makes sense. And what would you say? So, Rare Pepe, you know, on the meme standpoint, it's very strong. You know, it's a kind of there is a big culture around that meme. Did there was anything close to from a meme perspective, as close as you know, the impact of Rare Pepe in your perspective?
I mean, in terms of meme power,
yes.
Gosh, no. I mean, you know, some of these other projects have like, they've created their own dynamics and have their own kind of like cachet or have kind of become like, they'll been goods in their own right. But I don't think anything has achieved the kind of like have approached the meme power of Pepe. You know, I think that, yeah, at least for the foreseeable future, I think Pepe is going to still be the alpha meme out there.
All right. And So just to end the discussion around Rare Pepe. So what is your perspective in the next 5, 10, 15 years around Rare Pepe?
Okay, you'll like this. So, I wrote an article last year, and I made a really wild prediction, and I still stand by it. Is that I think the first card of the collection, the Nakamoto card, I think we're going to see. I called it, 10 years out last year, so we've got 9 years. I think we're going to see the Rare Pepe card trade for between $100 and $250 million in 9 years.
Wow. And it's because it's around your belief around the impact on the culture of okay.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. So, one of the reasons, so memes become powerful through repetition and ubiquity, right? Well, even within, and Pepe itself is the meme that, Rare Pepe is coming from, but within crypto culture and within all of these other projects, the Rare Pepe card, the Nakamoto card, is like one of the most significant and reference cards in crypto art, right? I mean, it's amongst serious collectors, it's one of the most desirable digital properties ever, and I think that status is going to become like even more solidified as more and more people who've wanted it for years are able to get one. I think these are going into extremely strong hands. Like, I don't intend to sell mine unless I think the security of the Bitcoin chain is going to be in question, right? So, I mean, so that's one of the things I think is an interesting dynamic with vintage NFTs is that, again, like there's 298 of the Nakamoto cards. So that's an extremely small, active supply or circulating supply of something on a global stage, right? And a lot of these are going into like people's hands like mine, but they're just not for sale at any price. So, there's going to be some, as more and more people come into the space, there's going to be some real supply shocks, I think, as this plays out. That's why I think that the prices are eventually going to get disorderly. Again, this is like not financial advice.
Yeah, yes, for sure. And thanks to add the disclaimer. Thanks.
I mean,
for sure, again, it's entertaining purposes only.
I just throw one other thing out there, I've bought and I collected a lot of stuff, but for people looking to get into it, this is like a extremely high risk, illiquid asset class. So if you're going to play in this space, it needs to be with risk capital, not something that you need to liquidate and take, because some of the stuff, if you need to unload, you will, if you need to unload it fast, you'll take a bath, lose a lot. It's just, anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. So it's not all unicorns and rainbows.
All right. So thanks for all the insight so far. I want to talk about the market dynamic, right? Because you say that you have basically you started digging into cryptocurrency in 2012, and when basically you have your aha moment around NFT, you start to dig into, and when you basically find out the vintage niche, you kind of stick around. But I want to pick your brain around what are the main difference between the market dynamic into the vintage NFTs and, let's say, the mainstream NFTs.
Yeah, so it goes, well, a few things. That the first off is right away is that there's a infinite supply of new NFTs that will be created, right? There's no, the barrier to entry keeps getting actually lower, and the cost to create them keeps getting smaller. So on that, right away, there's no scarcity for there's nothing to prevent someone creating a new, even hotter version of the latest thing, right? So even if this new collection is cool, like what's to stop someone creating something even cooler, right? Like there's no scarcity there, but there's a finite amount of these vintage NFTs that were minted, and actually the supply on most of them is declining as some of these wallets get lost and burns and whatnot happens.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and again, it you can't recapture lightning in a bottle in terms of the like you can't recreate the Rare Pepe, or you can't recreate the first NFT on a particular chain again, right? So like with Spells of Genesis or all these crazy historically significant moments, you can't recreate those. And that's really the besides scarcity, that's the other part, is the historical significance, right? You can't recreate the firsts again. So there's so many really wild projects that have a tiny supply. I think there's going to be a lot more nerds like myself out there. And even if wealthy people don't care, there's enough hardcore nerds like myself that are going to want to own some of these things that, again, push comes to shove, even for some of these things where there's 1,000 supply, 1,000 supply or something in a global context, when crypto adoption is like 5 or 10 times in what, 4 or 5 years, it's going to be anything, right? So that's I think that's going to get, I think some of these things we take for granted now are going to be really hard to get at any price.
Yes, makes sense. So so the main difference in your perspective are the supply, in the first place, the scarcity, and the history. The fact that you cannot be first again.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's alongside the significance is, it's also capturing that moment in the cultural, like the crypto cultural zeitgeist at the time too, right? So that's again, like Rare Pepe's, as using that as another example, that collection has a really cool vibe just because of the way that project came together and was run. I mean, and same thing for all these other, they have their own vibe that you can't recreate now. So because a lot of this stuff was done when they're like, even if they were making money back then.
I got you.
Yeah, I mean, like Pixel Map, I think at the time that launched it, like he was asking like $20 for one of the tiles or something. It was like nothing, right? So yeah.
All right. I want to talk about the discover of historic project, because my view is, we can name a lot of, not a lot, but at least, we have a list of historical project, right? My question is around, how can be sure that all historical projects have been found yet? So I want to go into the kind of, discovery.
Yeah, sure. So that's a good question. So it depends on the chain and the technology that they were using. So for example, with Namecoin, it's a very primitive, it's the first chain where NFTs were possible and were created. So that's very easy. You can just look at the transaction history on chain, and for example, like the first day of NFTs being created, they're called like Genesis domains. There's less than 100 that were created, and you can see the transaction history really easily with the block explorer, right? Where for in a similar sense for like for Counterparty and Doge Party, that has its own system for like you can track the transactions for asset creation and like name registration, asset creation, like creating supply, that kind of thing. So you can track that with the block explorer. It's a little bit harder with Ethereum because the way they did the way some of those contracts were done, you can't actually like tell when the contracts were unless you are able to like have either the source code or have a good shot at just decoding it, what the functions are. So that's where there's a lot more. There's been more discoveries on Ethereum, just because it's not quite as straightforward to just look at the transactions and see what was going on. Like when some of these people were deploying these contracts back on Ethereum, you can see the transaction block explorer. You can't tell what's actually in the contract though, unless you have the source code or a way to decode that. So that's why Ethereum's been a little bit more of a complicated one, rather than a longer period of rediscovery. But yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, I mean, that's the gist of it. I do think that we'll probably get a couple more, but I think we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now, at least on Ethereum. I mean, I have a couple of tiny proof of concepts, but like big, like NFT, that what we normally consider an NFT would be, we have a couple like name registries that I don't think were used back then, but then we had like Ethereum, which is the it's like this crazy advanced like 3D world, like where you can like create like build out on these tiles that you can trade. And it's like way ahead of its time. So that was created back in 2015. Mm-hmm. So that's super early.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, those are the main chains. There's other chains that have NFTs, but that's kind of what the outlook looks like, and that's why we'll probably still see like more Ethereum stuff pop up as maybe more people wake up to the fact that they, like some of the old creators would realize that vintage NFTs are valuable, and they find their old wallet and publish the code and bring those back to life. But I don't think we're going to have very many early significant ones left.
Okay. And so what you say basically, it's on a Dodge party, counterparty, it's more straightforward to look into what was happening. It's kind of the information. It's more easy to pull up, right? Yeah. And on Ethereum, it's more like it's you can look into the block, what was happening, but it's the issue land into if the source code it's available or not, or did the issue it's somewhere else?
Yeah, so yeah, it was basically up to the person who created the contract whether or not they published the source code and made that available, like to allow people to actually see the details of the contract. Because there's a lot of these, like, and that's like all you can see on the block explorer without that is you can see the track creation, right? But beyond that, without having that extra information, it's really, you really don't know what these things are.
Okay. But can we assume that before before the bull run of 2021, can we assume that back in the day, people was with the culture of open source, and can we assume that by default, the way to go was to publish the source code, or it wasn't kind of accepted back then?
Well, I mean, it depends. So some people were keeping their source code in GitHub repos, and there was no issue. A lot of people weren't publishing it, I think, because not many people cared back then. These were kind of like, again, like little side hobby projects that weren't super serious. Yes. But I think that's mainly the deal. I mean, again, people were tinkering around, and I don't think people were thinking like that far into the future.
Okay, makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, definitely the open source and I mean, yeah, crypto is huge for open source ethos and everything. I mean, yeah, I mean, again, most of this stuff wasn't like these weren't running, running cash grabs back then. I mean, some of them were making fun of the ICOs at the time too with their their projects. So yes, it's kind of cool.
Okay, makes sense. And regarding the market dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. So you talk about scarcity, supply, and history. what about the dynamic of collectors and sellers?
Yeah.
Well, if you can compare between what I call mainstream, but I hope that you get me. I try to make a compare between vintage and what I call mainstream. Like you can change a mainstream by what it's happening today.
Yeah, sure. So the modern or the mainstream stuff has really different market dynamics in the sense that what you see in the higher profile projects are essentially coordinated pump and dumps for the most part, where they have a manufactured hype cycle. They'll go through the mint out, and then essentially once that's done, like maybe they'll hire some community managers or something to run it for a year or two, but essentially it's done. They take the money and run.
Yes.
Maybe they want to try and maintain a quote unquote community or whatever, or community forms around the project regardless of the devs, right? That's pretty common too, right?
Yes.
Because the devs will abandon it. Like the community for the reason for collecting the vintage ones is fundamentally different. Where there's no risk of the devs rug pulling from like Ethereum or CryptoCats or Rare Pepes. I mean, because like there's no, it doesn't matter if the devs try and do something or not, because these things are immutable on the chain. So that I think is actually an important point. And something I think is interesting is that a lot of the even current value for projects like Bored Ape is there's kind of like when you compare it to almost like stocks, is that there's the kind of like a baked in value for the future expectations of what the team is going to do. And so from that perspective, there's also an inherent risk that if the team fails to deliver or stumbles, or just, again, they even just lose the cachet or the cool factor, that they're going to then, there's a downside that risk doesn't exist for the vintage market, right? So that's another area where it's fundamentally different, right?
Yes. And I want to pick your brain around what you just said about the orchestrated pump and dump. In your perspective, which tool can help any collector? But where I want to pick your brain, it's into what tool have to be created for the market to help the market, detect this kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, honestly, for modern projects, a lot of the stuff that out of the gate is either instrumented or has a lot of hype. Personally, I think a lot of these projects are being run by a small group of, or maybe it's a bigger group than I think, but there's a handful of groups that have this whole coordination and hype cycle down to a science. So how do you avoid that? What tools? Well, personally, I think if you're going to play in the modern space, and you're actually from mint, I think you need to be extremely selective, right? And you need to form your own thesis that these things fit into, because just minting the flavor of the day, I mean, you just look at if you tried to mint and hold most of those, you would have gotten destroyed. So if you want to play in that space, you need to have strategy, right? Personally, I don't even try. I see there's some that I could have made some off of, but some I would have gotten destroyed. I'd rather park my capital into stuff that to me is there's no risk in me buying what I like already at these low prices. Currently, we're in the early part of 2023 right now, and I think we've got some pretty amazing deals in this bear market. So I'd rather, to me, it's no risk in buying stuff I like at these prices.
Okay, okay, makes sense. In fact, so when to give my perspective as well, when I was talking about tools, what I'm thinking about, it's about two things. The first one, I would have to have like a Chrome extension that when you put any contract, it gives you, a percentage of wash threading into that collection, at the current time. And since the contract creation, and that thing alone may help to get a sense of, did there is a kind of manipulation behind the scene or not, So it's the first thing that I'm thinking about. After, the second thing is to have, so I call, it's a Chrome extension because it's as close as what it's my day-to-day. But the idea is to have another tool that help you to understand the distribution, but to really get the sense of the real distribution, and to avoid to have kind of, if someone kind of splitting asset into multiple wallets, you can see that as there is a lot of distribution, but in reality, that can be seen as the other view that you can have. It's like, there is not the distribution, it's not that high, So it's really into these two things. The first one is about the wash threading, because for me it's the biggest, kind of information that it's straightforward about manipulation. And the second thing, it's about distribution. And the distribution for me, it's more like to detect when someone kind of want to create a narrative about something, and you can detect, you try to make that narrative, but in the same time you are the biggest holder of this thing, so it's a kind of the two tools that I would love to have.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, those are really valuable things to be able to see. It gets hard to do that reliably, though.
Yes.
With both of those, because they're actively going out of their way to surreptitiously do those things, because they are manipulation. The other example I think is a good one to keep in mind is Yuga with Bored Apes and MoonPay. Now we have, like, it was rumored for a long time, but now we know now we know that they were
confirmation now. Yes.
Yeah, and that they were giving away these apes for promotion, like that famous, like, cringeworthy scene of Paris Hilton and Jimmy Fallon. Like,
but it seems that it wasn't just giving away; it was giving away plus take visa payment as well.
Yeah, and in exchange for promotion, which undisclosed promotion, which, I mean, that's super shady. So I mean, we have. And again, you see even like giveaways and promotions, and like even within the influencer space, there's been some mini scandals in the news stuff recently too, with how that's worked with people, getting these essentially payoffs to shill these new mints, and then insta dumping them on the people that were following them. So,
yes.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, distribution is a huge one. I just don't know. Because I've seen, like, what you're talking about with the wash trade. I've seen where, like, you go and you see these fresh wallets that are wash trading.
Yes.
these like new
out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this is the first thing that you actually bought. You funded a fresh wallet to buy, like, Zippy Dogs NFT, and you decided to become a day trader in that. Okay,
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. I do think that would be cool if they could, that's something that we also look at in the vintage stuff too. Is distribution is huge.
Yes, it basically it's for the the wash threading and the distribution. In my perspective, it's useful for any condition. For vintage or for modern.
Well, you mind if I ask you, like, what do you look at it in terms of the modern projects or new projects?
Modern, not a lot. I'm an holder of VFriend, so I'm looking into that. It's Gary Vee that onboard me in a Web3 in 2021. I started. I buy my first cryptocurrency in 2017, but it was more like okay, I buy that. It was more with the money aspect, of it, and after I go to sleep. But what led me to get back into it, it's December 2020, when Elon Musk make a very lot of noise with the buy of Bitcoin, etc. And when the Bitcoin was at the ATH, it was trigger me to let me get back into that, and just after there was the launch of the fund, and from that, it's really where I start to really dig into what is NFT, the technology, everything, So regarding the modern stuff, I will say that first thing, I don't have, a lot of cash to play with, so it's more like I'm looking, from afar. I'm not into a lot of stuff. I'm looking into proof because I do love the aspect of, talking about the art first, and not talking about, kind of the floor, this kind of stuff. It's really about the artist and the art. I don't know if you have seen the grade season 3. It was so I don't remember the exact date, but basically when I watched the reveal of the grade season 3, it was like watching a big production on Netflix. It was very amazing and very entertaining, and it's really something that I envision into going after the mainstream, and to democratize the crypto art, for someone that it's not into crypto art. So it's what I'm looking to after, I'm listening what it's happening. So recently that was open edition, and 2 weeks ago, with Ordinal. So I'm looking what is happening, but it's I hope that makes sense. My reply to you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of like you, where I don't have a lot of cash to throw at new stuff either, and I'm always kind of like amazed at how much some people are able to kind of throw at something again without really a meaningful thesis, right? So
yes.
That's been kind of fun to watch the like you said, the open edition like little bubble, and then now we've had the ordinals thing popping off, which is cool tech, but I mean, I just suspect that we're in the missing another little bubble right here too.
Yes. But and I want to pick your brain regarding Ordinal. What are your thinking? Because at first, Ordinal, it's a tech. It's basically someone that enable. It's kind of someone created the ERC-721 into Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are talking about a technology first, right? And the usage right now of that technology don't really make sense to me. So I don't know what is your what are your perspective?
Well, actually, I kind of think it has probably a more meaningful role than I think a lot of the Bitcoin people would like to admit. Essentially the security model for Bitcoin right now is broken long term because of the insistence on relying on the fixed block size that they've chosen since 2017. So unless fees go up at the same rate, then the security of the network goes down. So what I view this as is kind of like a good bad thing, in the sense that this may be kind of like what was needed to drive enough fees in the short medium term to provide more additional fees for miners to secure the network until some decisions are made in terms of eventually increasing the block size or something. But I think that would be kind of like the hit. Like, people are crying about the increased fees and filling up the blocks, but this is putting more fee pressure on the chain, and I think that could be in its own way a positive thing until. And again, the other thing is, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong, but the other way to look at that too is, you could potentially increase the block size of Bitcoin to maybe you quadruple it or something. Maybe you push it to 10 megs, and there may be enough demand where it'll always be filled up regardless too. So, I mean, there has to be a trade-off there too, because you still want to have a chain that's, not enormous as well, right?
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of like the thing that I haven't seen anyone else talk about. It really is that the additional fees for the miners is at least in the short term, I think, is a positive.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, I do think it's cool though that they're storing this stuff on chain. I didn't see that coming. So.
Oh yeah, me too. But I don't recall. I would have to pull up my desktop to get the name of that person. But it's the person behind the Ordinals, technology. At first, it was just a side hustle. It was just like a side project. And I don't know why that thing started to become that big 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't either. It really just blew up out of nowhere.
Yes, exactly.
And again, I mean, I think the technology is cool, and I'm just a little bit scared of it being a bubble in terms of the prices for the assets right now. But I do think the technology has room and a reason to be here.
Yes, and it's also themed that there is a narrative around the what give value, of some ordinals. It's a kind of the things that you said about Dodge party and counterparty. The aspect that it's sequential. So I hope that I don't quote you wrong, but it's kind of an ordinal. It's all the inscription. It's sequential. So it's like there is the first one, the second one, etc. And after, it's just increase of number, and it's kind of the narrative that I heard, being on some space that weekend. It's the fact that having an inscription below 100, it's it's a scare thing, because it's a new technology, and this technology will bring a non-fungible thing into Bitcoin. So it's kind of a big thing, and it's kind of if you are in under 100, it's it's wow, it's amazing. Under 1,000 is still amazing. Under 10,000 is still amazing. And I heard this narrative as well.
Well, I'd love to talk about that a little bit, because that's something that's a very similar narrative that I heard last year with the ENS digits hype. And
it's the same concept. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't buy it personally. I mean, I can see, I understand like how they're looking at that, but personally, like with I faded the ENS numbers. I mean, granted, I could have made a zillion bucks if I don't know, saw what was going to happen, but I don't see the inherent value in the same way that they're portraying it, in the sense that the whole purpose of DNS is essentially like a DNS system to have readable names, and creating like, if you go back into like hacker culture or anything, people weren't referencing each other by 01145, right? Like the notorious freakers would be Captain Crunch, right? We were reading human readable names, and trying to create this kind of, I don't know, reversed engineered, like creating scarcity out of, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense long term. And nothing against the people that really enjoy that or think that it's their bag. I mean, more power to them. I just don't buy it. But with the, I could see like maybe the first 100 or first 1,000 ordinals, like just for the gee whiz thing. But in a similar sense, I personally, it's not that's not a way that I would personally speculate. I mean, hey, maybe it'll end up being the most savvy thing in the world. But I think there's, at least for me personally, there's other stuff that I'm also just more like passionate about, and I think is cooler. So
yes, got you. And yes, regarding ENS, me, I will say that it's not like I don't buy into it, because some argument makes sense, as the main argument, if I can say that, maybe I'm wrong, but the main argument that I can recall, it's like, if we pretend in the next future that Ethereum it's the main blockchain, right? And as you say, you know, ENS stands for DNS. And if ENS becomes the DNS of the biggest blockchain used by the world, it's kind of this thing become, you know, as it's numeric, you know, it's talking to every country, you know. So it's like there is a kind of, you know, supply and a demand, you know. It's kind of there is a low supply based on the demand, you know. It's kind of you compare 8 billion of human and there is only kind of 1,000 of you know the ENS starting from 000 and going to 999, you know. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that makes sense on paper, yeah. Right?
Yeah, I mean, finite supply, but again, like if I wanted to like transact with you, Robert, I mean, you know, if we were to trade names, to like, if I'm going to send you some ETH, like would it be more memorable for me to see a name like Robert.eth, or would it be as memorable for me if you were sending me like 0425.eth? Like, okay, I mean, that it works, but I mean, for purposes of identity, I personally don't buy it. I mean, but it is unique. It's you know, non-fungible. It's there's, again, technically a limited supply. So again, you can, like, people can trade and you know, and barter around that and do all that. I just don't buy it for identity, for that person, for that reason. It's just not, unless you're in that bubble. I mean, in that world, and you know, not saying bubble in a
yeah, I got you. No problem.
A term, a disrespectful way. I mean, like, if they're into that thing, that I'm just saying, to me as an outsider, it doesn't.
I'm too. Don't worry. I'm an outsider as well.
Yeah. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. But you know, again, fair play to them. Some of them have made quite a bank.
Yes, for sure. And I would love, you know, to know who, you know, for whatever narrative, who is behind, you know, the narrative, you know, who starts the thing. I would love to know, you know.
Actually, that's a good point. I was there when the CryptoPunks, like right now, like hoodies are way more valuable than a floor punk, even though that, like, the trait itself isn't super scarce. There's a lot more scarce traits out there than hoodie. But yes. It's funny. I kind of watched, like, when that like started to become a thing, just watching it, like watching D's like meme about it in the punks Discord, and he kind of memed that into becoming like a thing, really. So I don't know. I think it's interesting, like you said, to like people can meme it into existence too, right? So
yes.
Yeah, there's that aspect too.
Yes, I'm totally agree with you. And yes, yes. Basically, my main point is, you know, as you said, it's non-financial advice. It's we are talking about high risk, you know, asset, and with these two foundation. For me, the thing that anyone that want to be involved in that world, what that person need to have, it's to have insight and knowledge, you know, to make true decision and not, you know, act into based on emotion or feelings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right. So I took you more than 1 hour. Did there is anything that you want to talk about, you know, vintage collections that I didn't give you the opportunity to?
Yeah, in terms of specific collections, I mean, I guess I'd just say that, you know, there's a like, if you're interested in the space, like you jump in one of the Discords, like the NFT Relics, where it gives you links to all of these other like almost every project that's out there.
Yes.
That's tradable, that you can then like learn and like see what you think's cool. Like I would say that you don't have to, like, don't have to spend a lot of money to get something that's really cool and that you may like more than the quote unquote popular things. So I just think there's room out there for, you know, if you're interested in it, to find what really appeals to you. So, and kind of get addicted too. So it's a slippery slope.
All right. So you are into NFT relics. Are you into other Discord?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in like in most of the discords for the historic projects. NFT relics is kind of like a they just like they have a list in their Discord of a bunch of the main projects that are tradable. So like, you know, from, you know, going all the way from like the .bit domains like a Namecoin to going up to like, you know, the stuff that's on Counterparty and Doge Party, Ethereum. You know, those are the majority of stuff that trades is on you know, Counterparty and on Ethereum. But there's other stuff on like Doge Party, like I said, Namecoin. You know, there's some other smaller chains too. But that's where all the action is, really. But I mean, that's what I'd say is that you know, just take a look at all these different projects and see what interests you, you know, and have fun.
Yes, all right. And are you into event? You know, real life event?
Like what do you mean in terms of real life?
You know, for example, in France there is NFT Paris next week. But you know, New York you know, in US there is NFT New York. You know, there is Denver. There is you know, VCon. You know, are you into attending a real life event?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to do that yet due to some, you know, my IRL you know, responsibilities. But I'm hoping to maybe do that either later in the year this year or maybe next year. Make it a couple of those events. I'd like to. For sure to make it to at least one of the Pepe meetups and you know, or Bitcoin Miami or something like that. And you know, that vintage NFT fest in Barcelona sounds pretty amazing too. So I'd like to make it to one of those as well.
All right.
How about you?
Makes sense.
The
same. Basically, last year I wasn't aware of you know, the event at Barcelona, you know, the first, you know, historical event in Barcelona. I wasn't aware of that, but if I was aware in time, I would have showed up to that for sure. And yes, basically the idea is to meet people and to basically it's to do what I just done with you in a real life situation. You know, it's really like to try to understand the situation, to have other perspective, you know, to also to work into your my own belief, because sometimes, you know, you have belief, but you don't really walk into it. You know, it's only when you talk with someone else that, you know, someone can showcase some weakness into your belief. So me, I'm into that. You know, you know, I'm a user of Web3. I'm watching what is happening, and I try to stay educated every day. You know, and it's why I'm hosted Robert Spotlight, because I want to be in front of you know, guests like you that may bring insight and also make me reconsider some points. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun talking to you. I enjoyed the ability to hash this out with someone else, get their perspective too, because you know, and that's what another reason I think those IRL meetups would be nice too. Is you know, like I don't know anyone in like meet space that that's into this stuff too. You know, so it's kind of like you're like a little bubble online that I interact with, right? So
yes, exactly. Correct. Make a lot of sense. So thank you again, ZeroG, for your present, for your time, for all your knowledge. And so if someone want to follow you, it's going to be on into Twitter, I would assume.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can toss my link in the description or something. And
yes, I will do it.
Yeah, that's probably the only social media presence I have at the moment. So
perfect. So yeah, thank you. Yes,
appreciate it. Fun.
Thank you very much. It was a very fun conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye, ZeroG.
Okay. Thanks, Robert.
Bye.